This parable's interesting, and I'm going to spend some time on it in just a minute. He says, or what woman, if she has 10 silver coins and loses one, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and search carefully until she finds it? When she finds it, she calls together her friends and neighbors and says, rejoice with me. Look at your neighbor and say, rejoice with me. Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin which I had lost. In the same way, I tell you, there is joy in the presence and the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And then finally, this is the longest parable. You have the parable of the prodigal son, which everybody knows. And the man has two sons, and one son demands his inheritance right now, and he leaves, and maybe some of you will call it a wild spurt. And he goes on his wild spurt and spends all of his money. And at the end of the parable, you find that he's eating from the pig pen. And as he's eating from the pig pen, he's so poor and so hungry and so desperate, and he's spent everything, that he has this, I call it a come to Jesus meeting with himself. He had this epiphany with himself, and he said, what am I doing here? My father's servants are better off than I am right now. And so he has this encounter in the pig pen, and he runs home, and the father meets him, and the father says something very interesting. He says, let us, somebody say us, who? The father and all of his servants. If you look up the word servants in the Greek, those are angels. This is a parable representing God the Father and the angels of heaven celebrating over a prodigal who has run home. And he says, let us eat and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found, and they all began to celebrate. The number one thing I want you can see, you're going to celebrate in just a minute. The number one thing you must hear in all three parables, the first thing I must share with you, is that when a prodigal comes home, when the lost are found, it seems in these stories that it is a requirement for the body of Christ to celebrate. Anyone who belongs to the body can't help but celebrate when a lost soul comes home. It troubles me when I see church people, perhaps maybe from other churches and other ministries, that cannot celebrate the coming home of a prodigal because it did not happen in their church, or it did not happen in their ministry, or they get jealous of the one that comes home. And we'll get there in a minute, because the end of the prodigal son parables is very, very telling. And all of this ties into something I think that is very prophetic. And when I was asking the Lord what this year is going to be like, he spoke clearly to me, and he said this is the phrase that he gave me: pig pen prophets. And I said, Lord, what do you mean, pig pen prophets? He said, this will be a year that prodigals come home in droves, but they won't just come home. Churches get excited when prodigals come home, but churches they seem not to get too excited when the prodigals that come home end up taking mics and leading worship. They don't get too excited when the prodigals come home and take the microphone and start preaching. The leaders of the church sometimes seem to get a little jealous when prodigals come home, get redeemed, and then they grab the mic and start prophesying, and they start testifying about what they've been through. I find something, it's interesting how passionate prodigals are when they come home because of the hell that they've walked through. It seems to me that many church people have forgotten the hell that they walked through, and if you would remember where you were before you met Jesus, you might be shouting too. You might be shouting like one of those prodigals if you would remember where you came from. And I often find the church gets very excited when a prodigal gets saved. They get very excited when a prodigal gets baptized. But let a prodigal come up and lead worship and see how jealous they get. And they'll say, well, that should be me on the mic. I've been faithful to this church for X amount of years. I've been serving this church for 30 years and I haven't left. You know who you sound like? You sound like the brother of the prodigal. Well, since I'm already there, I just want to read to you about the brother of the prodigal. The father said to him, your brother has come and your father has killed the fattened calf because he's received him back safe and sound. But the brother became angry and would not go in. Watch this. This is interesting. The brother of the prodigal did not go into the feast representing the marriage supper of the Lamb. The prodigal's brother did not make it in the coming of the Lord because he wasn't willing to go in. And his father came and began to plead with him. God literally came and started begging the other son to come into this feast. And he answered and said to his father, look, for so many years I have been serving you, and I've never neglected a command of yours, and yet you have never given me a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours comes home, who's devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, son, you've always been with me, and all that is mine is yours. We had to celebrate and rejoice. For this brother of yours was dead and has begun to live. He was lost and has now been found. Everything that belonged to the Father belongs to the Son. That's why you and I have the ability to lay hands on the sick and see healing, because everything that belongs to the Father belongs to the children. You have the ability to lay hands on people and see them deliver, because everything that belongs to the Father belongs to the sons and daughters. All of it. Somebody say all of it. Don't in these last days be dismayed when people that you have marked off as unable to be saved start coming home and falling on their face. Don't be dismayed when the person you have marked off as unable to be redeemed finds themselves in this church and in that tank, getting baptized and burying their sin. Don't be dismayed by it, and be careful not to be judgmental of their Jesus encounter. You might be like the brother, not able to find your way into the feast of the Lord because of people you have marked off. And I tell you truly, this could be a season of prodigals coming home and prophesying to you about the places they've been. If you believe it, why don't you shout right now? Since I'm in a room of mostly believers, I'm assuming, I recognize many faces, and I feel the Lord wanting to minister in this direction. I find something interesting about all three parables. Are you ready to go there? Are y'all still here? I want to minister this to you. It's very interesting. And when we read these parables, we always talk about the people who were lost. I want to talk about the people who were not lost. I want to talk about the people who were found. Can I go there for just a minute? In the parable of the sheep and the one sheep leaving, there was a shepherd that recognized something's missing here. There was a leader that recognized something's not right. There's people missing. There's someone missing from the flock. It'd be like a pastor and his leader saying, well, there's people missing. In the parable of the lost coin, the woman had this moment where she realized, one of my coins is missing. Now you might say, I'm going to save that because that's very good. I'm going to save that for later. That's real good stuff. You got to stick around to get all that. She had this realization, hey, something's lost. I got to go find this. And then finally in the parable of the prodigal son, we see that the father had this moment and stayed in this moment of or this season of anticipation, waiting for his son to come home. What I'm preaching to you is the people of God, the body of Christ, the family of God, all of them, if they were really part of the family, recognized that people were missing and they had to be found. It's going to click with them in a minute. We're so used to talking about the people who were lost. Well, what about you guys? You say you're found. You say you're redeemed. You say you're saved. You say you're doing the work of the Lord. If you are doing the work of the Lord, your eyes will not be fixed on all the stuff going on in the church. Your eyes will be fixed on the people who are not yet here. Because all three of them had this moment where they said, oh my goodness, my flock's not complete. My set of coins is not complete. My house is not complete. Notice that with the parable of the sheep, it was the shepherd. With the parable of the coin, it was this woman. And with the parable of the prodigal son, it was God the Father saying, there's something wrong in my house. My house is not complete unless you're a part of it. And I hear the Lord saying to those of you who are perhaps backslidden tonight, my house is not the same unless you're in it. There are people in the room, I feel by the Spirit tonight, that you feel like you have nothing to offer to the kingdom. You come to church, but you don't feel like you have anything to offer to the Lord, and so you just come and do your duty of coming to church, and then you leave, but there's no participation in the work of the Lord, and you're living in sin, and you're living in carnality while you're in this house. And I hear the Lord saying, my house is not the same without you in it. I even heard the Lord as I walked into the sanctuary tonight saying to some of you, I really miss you. It troubles the heart of the Father to be apart from you. And the Lord misses you. And His house is not the same unless you're in it. But for the people of God tonight who are listening, there has to be a moment where your eyes shift from everything going on around you to the people who aren't in the fold yet. There has to be a moment where your eyes shift outward. Somebody say outward. There has to be a moment where your eyes shift out towards the harvest field, the crop that has not yet been reaped. And if your eyes have not shifted there, I don't know that you can say that you're a part of the family of God. Because everyone affiliated with the family of God is looking for people who are lost. Everyone. Everyone who's a part of this body is looking for people who are lost. Notice that when all three of them realized something was gone, their focus became singular. Somebody say singular. When they realized it was gone, when they realized somebody was lost, when they realized the set wasn't complete, their focus shifted from everything going on in their home and everything going on around them to how can I get that back? How can I get that? For the woman and her coin, it was, how can I get that part of me back? I've lost a set of coins. Now you might ask, why is that important? She had 10 coins, she lost one. And when I first read the parable, the first time I read it, I said, well, I don't know if I go looking. She's still got 9. I mean, she's probably good. I guess I thought of them as like dimes. You got 9 of them. Watch this though. This is important. Are you here? These 10 coins in that culture, the woman would wear coins around their neck. And she would wear a coin around her neck because it represented her marriage covenant. They didn't do wedding bands, they did coins. And the woman wore the coin around the neck and it represented marriage. What she lost was her covenant. Yeah. And a covenant was represented by a set of 10 coins. So it wasn't just a little coin that she lost. She understood that something about her in the spirit was not complete. Something's missing. Harold, I go to church. I do the church stuff, man. I sing on the team. I do the stuff. I'm on the prayer team. I wear the lanyard, but something's missing. Something's off. When I go home at night and rest, I have no peace. There's something missing. When I try to pray, I don't hear His voice. Something missing. When I read my Bible, I feel like I'm reading a novel and I don't get anything from it and it bores me. Something's missing. It's not like it used to be. Oh, that's ministering to somebody. You're saying that about your spiritual walk right now. It's not what it used to be. It's not the way it's always been. I'm not hearing the Lord like I used to hear the Lord. He feels far from me. And when this woman realized her set was incomplete, she realized, man, something about my covenant is incomplete. Like, this is a big deal. You know, covenant's a big deal. Some people don't treat their marriage covenants like big deals, but they are. They're very big deals. God honors covenant. You understand that God's hand moves based on covenant? You realize that He moves His hand from place to place based on covenant? This is the very reason that Israel still exists today. Because God made a covenant with a man by the name of Abraham and said, I'm going to raise you up as a nation and bring your people back. That's why Israel still exists today, and in the year 1948, they came back and became a nation again, because God honors covenant. Even if it's thousands of years later, He honors covenant. Because He's a promise keeper. Because that's just who He is.